Hello, welcome to PR Essentials Summit Series, Marketing in the Metaverse, and episode 116.
Welcome to the PR Playbook Podcast, the only podcast giving you actionable skills and advice you need to execute a strategic PR program. Warning: what you hear next may lead to brand awareness and increased sales and customer exposure. Now here's your host, Ranjini Joshua.
Hi, we are back with PR Essentials Summit Series. I love that we are able to multi-purpose this and turn these into podcasts. So for any of you people listening out there, this is the way you maximize and I called amplify your content in 2023 by using it in lots of different formats. We recorded the PR Essentials Summit at the end of December, and we kind of hosted all the latest trends and hot topics for marketing, PR, and social media. And we came out with the PR Essential Summit series. In this conversation, we are marketing in the metaverse. And obviously, metaverse is a huge buzzword for 2022-23. We talked to Pascal Kemper, who is the CEO of BizLogic, and Erica Lovegreen, who is the VP of Marketing and Communications at ICUC. And we just talk about how to market in the metaverse, who should be marketing in the metaverse, why you should be marketing in the metaverse, if it makes sense for your brand, and just some basic ideas on how to get started. So I think it's a really great conversation on things that are possible when you're marketing in the metaverse and why you should consider it. I think beyond that, maybe not everyone realizes that we are already in the metaverse and we're already marketing in the metaverse. It's just about how you can do it well and how you can optimize those opportunities. So join me with Pascal and Erica on this very interesting conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it and see you guys next time. Hello, my name is Ranjini Joshua. We are talking about marketing in the metaverse this beautiful morning. On this panel, we've got Pascal Kemper, the CEO of BizLogic, and we have Erica Lovegreen, this SVP of Marketing and Communications at ICUC. And we're just going to talk about marketing in the metaverse. What does all of that mean? How do we navigate it? And how are we going to go into this new year with kind of these concepts into our strategic communications plan? So, Erica and Pascal, thank you for joining me this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So why don't we just get started by having Erica, why don't we start you with the introductions and do some quick introductions of you and your company, ICUC.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name's Erica. I'm located not too far from Atlanta, and ICUC is a global community management agency. So we really dig into online conversations. We help build brand voice strategies, how to create conversation upon conversation, triage. Love our PR teams. We work very closely with them. Enterprise businesses are our primary clients. So some of my clients include Disney, Starbucks, Google, Intel, Novartis are some of the amazing clients that we work with. Obviously, the metaverse is a space with vibrant, rich communities and conversations. So we've been playing with it well before Mark Zuckerberg renamed his company to Meta. We're very familiar with a lot of the different gaming and live streaming places. So it's a big passion of mine. I've been doing this for several years. Prior to working at ICUC, I was a journalist. So I love asking questions. I'm super curious and just excited to get to talk a little bit more on this topic today.
Great. Thank you so much. And Pascal.
Well, I'm the CEO of BizLogic. Pascal, as you mentioned before, BizLogic itself basically provides engaging environment services and virtual digital solutions to B2B clients, mainly, usually international enterprises. We have an arm that does virtual reality trainings, for example. We have one that kind of does shopping experience. And the topic we talk about today is basically our kind of precursor to the Metaverse solution. It's basically started out as a digital event platform during COVID, obviously used to present everything from products to just have speeches and to mainly engage with their clients. We are located in the beautiful cold Hamburg in Germany by accident more than by plan, but we started to like it here a lot. And I'm quite happy that I kind of got to this more international panel again, which kind of
Yeah.
drives me out of the cold here.
Yeah. Well, we can warm you up a little bit. So
That's all.
this is great. Yeah. I think we've got what I love about having both of you on this, because we have these different aspects of metaverse. Obviously, the silver telegrams on the PR side and just communicating, but I see you guys have that community management aspect. And then BizLogic has the whole engagement activation aspect of it. So before we dive in too much to kind of how people can leverage the metaverse, what they should be thinking about in the coming year, I would love to just kind of get a perspective on how you guys see the metaverse. Like, I guess maybe how did you start getting into this space, and what does it exactly mean to you? Pascal, I'll have you start.
So basically how we got into this is kind of prior to COVID. We had several companies here. One was, as I mentioned before, the virtual training environment, which was focused mainly on international companies that were in the manufacturing field. So healthcare was a huge thing, car manufacturing, obviously Germany. So car manufacturing and everything that basically produces expensive machines. And we were focusing on kind of like making the training process and the development process of expensive machinery more efficient. And we had a second company which kind of focused on virtual concerts, virtual reality concerts, bringing people globally together, especially to bands that kind of don't have the budget or don't have the label behind them, but widespread international fan base. So bringing them together in a virtual space. Obviously, that product didn't work that well during COVID because no one ever wanted to get into the studio and record stuff. And our trainings were kind of on the higher tier. So we were visiting clients, we were traveling around the world, recording the facilities where they were built, where they're supposed to be used, and kind of built. So this didn't work out as well. So we kind of used the talent and kind of brought this solution together, and brought it basically together for Siemens and Procter & Gamble, which are kind of our first initial big clients who kind of used it. Obviously, the companies, they have products to present all the time, and engagement with their clients is one of the key aspects they do. And they needed a platform where they don't only kind of push information, but also engage with information. Have the clients engage, have the customers engage, partners mainly, and kind of provide an interactive environment that kind of adds something and also is kind of newsworthy. So they kind of can push it to different outlets and kind of get the marketing out of that. So, and this one grew and grew and grew. And for different companies we have on board right now, we started to build individual environments, and then we built another environment and another environment, and then we interconnected them. So for different clients, we kind of built their own little universes. And then at some point we got clients that were kind of already in a partnership, and we connected their universes. So from that point on, we kind of started to kind of see this larger scaled environment where everyone can interact, identities, payment processes gets transferred between these worlds. And we kind of like, that is kind of like how the metaverse is defined. So we stumbled into that, not by plan, but more like how the interaction between clients, customers, partners, and the actual companies is happening in times like COVID, especially. But it's also transferring. We saw that before already in a fast pace. Obviously, COVID accelerated that dramatically. And now we kind of like, everyone tried to get back after COVID to a little bit the normal, let's say. But we see now rampant upwards again, that they focus on, okay, what did we learn out of this time, these 2 years that were dramatic for a lot of companies? And what were the learnings, and how can we put them into practice and make our business and our connection engagement with our partners, clients more efficient and more beneficial for both sides? And that's how we ended up. So I think I answered both questions in one.
Yeah. Have you found that, like you said, COVID accelerated this a lot? I mean, I think a lot of people realize that everything digital was accelerated by COVID, but have you just found that, this hybrid environment, people are now adapting to it a little bit more? Are you finding that enterprises or companies that speak to you are looking to say, hey, no, we have both a digital presence and a physical presence to serve more people? Is it about customer experience, or what is their overall, like, I guess, pain point that they're trying to overcome? Or are they just trying to be innovative?
Yep, all of that. It depends strongly on who you talk to. So for some, the hybrid approach is basically for everyone, it's important. So obviously, during COVID, you had a complete new channel you could use to kind of address people. And they obviously don't let that go. You establish that. You put a lot of effort and work into it to kind of establish that channel, so you don't drop it. Why not? And it's kind of like you see that it's the future approach. And so they obviously kind of use that a lot. The hybrid thing kind of came, let's say, at the second year, and people came
Right.
back to the offices. People went out shopping again. So you had both, and you try to. We especially saw that on trade shows and fairs, where you kind of had the physical presence. People were eager to go back to physical
Oh
things
yeah.
and see it, but at the same time wanted to, okay, we have so many things now digital. How do we present that and get the physical thing? So we did trade shows where we kind of had machines where you could go into the virtual world, but at the same time talk to either a digital representative or a physical representative at the same booth, or present some stuff, especially in the manufacturing, present some machinery, or in higher detail, manipulate them in the digital space, but at the same time see the thing physically in front of you and kind of directly, seamlessly merge between the two worlds, which was super exciting for us. And one of the newest trends, we'd probably go to that back in the future, is hybrid work. It's obviously a big issue, kind of building communities within companies, within businesses. This is kind of the thing that currently is the most requested thing actually for us. So things came out of COVID that were not that apparent before.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely helps you create a more global presence. So in that same vein, Erica, talking about customer engagement, I think that's what I'm hearing a lot here is like people just want to be more engaged in lots of different ways. How do you see that playing out? And of course, like what does metaverse mean when it comes to social engagement?
Yeah, the funny thing about social engagement in the metaverse is that really defining the metaverse has been probably everyone's biggest challenge, right? It's a concept that's been around for a while, but then how is that evolving and coming to life in a social media landscape is still being a little bit confused.
Yeah.
When it comes to engagement, it's that, these are in highly engaged individuals. They absolutely have come into these environments. They want to talk to others. They want to speak to others in real time. They want to share whatever that connection point is. And that engagement is really where these special moments are happening amongst people. And brands right now are recognizing that they can learn, they can gather feedback, they can have a presence, they can continue to evolve their own strategies as a brand, both, in the marketing side, on the communication side, by being involved and engaged. The other thing with community is we also know it can present a high risk for brands. It can present a high risk if you're not paying attention too. So I think, as an organization, we've been in the community space for 20 years. It started with text message moderation. It went into news organizations, now into social media, now into, live streaming, live gaming spaces. And the point about the metaverse is its convergence, its efficiencies. There's these, again, spaces where individuals are talking, where they might go from one space to another space. And it's, that interaction is just so rich and a little bit different from, I think, some of the traditional social channels. It's more in real time and the expectations are faster responding. And, again, I think that more, less you can't really canned respond in a moment like that. It has to be, a little bit more, authentic and again, in the moment and match the context of the conversation. So, and you don't have as much forgiveness as you do, I think, on traditional spaces. So it's been amazing to watch it evolve. It's been really incredible, to help shepherd brands into that space and just recognize the power of these communities and what they can gain and the perspectives and the learnings that they can gain while being there.
You guys are bringing up so many questions. I always start generating all these side questions from the conversation, but I'm going to try to stick to the script here because I want to make sure that, whoever's listening really can understand how their brand can play in this space and do it responsibly and efficiently. Like you're mentioning, it's all about communication efficiencies. But I do want to come back to a question I have about how to manage all the data. But the next question I really want to, dive into before we get to that measurement portion is just, how critical is it for especially technology brands? And, we were talking earlier about how metaverse has been around for nerds, a long time ago. Like I'm 20, but I don't know, 22, oh, not 20, 2007, 6, 7, 8, I was working with Second Life and we were doing a lot of stuff in the metaverse and nobody knew what we were talking about and probably a little bit ahead of its time. And there was a lot of interesting challenges back then. But how important is it for people to have this kind of hybrid or metaverse presence in a time where not only now are we super digital, but we're now, people are talking about the looming recession in Q1 of next year, and everybody's trying to get above the noise and kind of bring something sexy to the playing field. How important is it for tech brands, and what are some different ways? Maybe that's a second question. How important is it to kind of just be involved? Is this a passing fad? Should we be thinking of long-term strategies for engaging into the metaverse?
I'm happy to kick that one off. I think the answer is it is very, very important. But what's even more important than the metaverse or any specific channel is knowing your audience. And part of the way that you can know your audience, I think social listening is a fantastic tool. I think doing, some type of an audit or audience analysis to really know where they're talking and be able to sort of place a weight on where you as an organization want to prioritize your time. The metaverse, virtual spaces are not going away. They're only growing. Understanding how your audience is using these spaces and what they seek to gain when they are using these spaces at this juncture, when sort of this concept has become really mainstream and everyone wants to be an innovator and is rushing into it. I think if you can ground yourself in your audience and really understand your value and how your product or your brand, whether you're tech or any other industry, how you fit into that as far as your audience is concerned, is how you're going to be able to I think win in this space, in this growing space. The other thing is it's a great opportunity to just earmark a little bit for testing. There is nothing wrong with testing and trying your hand and then taking those learnings too to help give an informed strategy. So if you know your audience well, you really deeply understand them, then you've done a little bit of a test. You're not rushing into this space and putting all your eggs in that basket. You're going in really informed, going in really thoughtful, and can develop a strategy, because your brand voice on some of these channels too that are in these converging metaverse spaces, whether it's a unique universe that's been created for scratch for you, or whether it's something on Decentraland or some of the other, gaming sites that are really finding fame right now. The voice and how you talk as a brand has to, again, cater to the audience. It's not something, the way that you're talking over on Instagram or on TikTok cannot really be applied. The same principles can't necessarily be applied here, other than fundamentally understanding your community and of continuing to evolve that. And if you go in, you enter in, you start talking, you have to have a plan. You have to have a playbook. Any PR, anyone knows that and, is emotional and emphatic about that. So I'm sure many people who are listening in feel that way, but got to have a plan for your brand voice. You got to have a plan for whether you're moderating, whether you're engaging, what's the governance of that? How are we triaging? When do we engage? When do we not? And, that can help, again, I think, our brands be successful there. But to answer your question the most simply, absolutely, there's a space, and I don't believe this is going away for anyone anytime soon. It's only going to get grander, greater, more engaging, and we're all really excited about it.
I love this dynamic because this is actually segues perfectly into what Pascal, I'm sure, can contribute to this part. And even more so is just, just as you were saying, Pascal, how do you come up with and develop a strategy that makes sense for brands and that universe or even whatever kind of engagement that you actually create for brands? How do you kind of workshop that and come up with those ideas on what's going to work for that audience?
Yeah, so first of all, I can only second what got said before, but to kind of add to that point, it is what we usually do is the current main job we do prior to actually building the environment for the client is basically kind of checking out what they did in the past and then help them, because that's usually, you have to guide them from what they know to what they now want to kind of do and want to work with. Because when we talk to tech brands, that they are already convinced that is oftentimes the challenge. Obviously, we get approached by the more innovative ones, the ones that are kind of daring to take a little bit risk in a new technology, but they also see, okay, this channel is completely aligned with what they want to be: innovative, high tech, good quality. So it is usually they come in with, okay, that's what we want to do. So we kind of guide them and help them to translate what they already have. Oftentimes you have a marketing video which kind of like shows something they want to present, and we kind of, okay, how can we create it more engaging, how can we do it, and how can we add to it. So, and then at some point it kind of, we take over a little bit more and they step back, and then usually it happens throughout the process where they kind of transfer what they already know, what they did in the past with like say online media. And we take a video where we kind of, they kind of explain what their kind of their intention was. We translate it into our solutions with a creative input, and then they, during this process, they catch up, they understand what they can do, they understand the abilities, they understand the limitations we have at this point. So they catch up, and all of a sudden at some point the floodgates are open, and then the ideas just pour out. And then it's just, then we just start moderating usually and kind of see, okay, that's feasible, this is feasible, this kind of takes this amount of time, this is about this amount of time. So as soon as we explain to people what is possible, how much more opportunities and advantages we have, and how much more engagement we can create, and how much more interesting we can create it, then they usually, we don't have to do much. We just have to then kind of shape it and kind of align it with what technology or our technology kind of is capable of doing. And it is usually as soon as you kind of stepped over this threshold where they kind of see, okay, that's a classic media, and they break through the thing where they understand the new technology, then it's basically just shaping. Not, it is not as difficult to do that as soon as you have creative people at a table and the right combination of people.
Well, can you, that just, that's, that's so much information. Can you give us like a good example of something that you can talk about, obviously, of something that you guys have created that has been really dynamic and useful for the brands, and, has emerged from that kind of process?
So we have a client who does the Olympic Games as a major sponsor.
Right.
And for example, we did the Olympic Games in Japan for them, the digital activation. And theirs was technically, they knew they wanted to have something with sustainability, because they are very at the forefront of sustainability right now. They want to represent the country, they wanted to represent the sport, they wanted to give people kind of an engaging environment. So that was all they knew, and they had all this marketing material. They had kind of already scratched out buildings they would like to represent. They already sketched out what their kind of idea of their marketing approach was and how they would address the topic. And they already had kind of rough content they wanted to put in. So it started, and there we go again. They had a video. It was a rough video, and we kind of used that. We implemented it. For example, the final solution was we had a boat ride where we kind of talk about the history of the Olympic Games. It was a lengthy one, of the beautiful kind of Japanese styled kind of environment. You ended up in a pier. You got a bottle on the way. You could recycle it there. You had the kind of the podium where you kind of see the people kind of presenting. Then you had the garden with more information. You could walk through, really calm and environment. And then you kind of got a little outlook to the future. It was an incredible experience. And it all came from, we want to do something, we have something, and we translate it. We have other clients, especially in the software field, where you have a portfolio of products, which are, let's say, very diverse, and no one understands how they work together. And it's bigger clients mainly, and within the company as well as kind of outside of the company, it might be difficult to kind of communicate that and visualize that. So what we did is we kind of had several events, and it was kind of, we created a world with different little islands with a pathway from the islands to the next island. And these pathways kind of merge together to a final one. So with each island, you learn something about a product, then about the next product it's connected to, then about the next product it's finally connected to. So basically creates a suite of products that you use. And it kind of like, when you went down the pathway at the big end, you really saw how the picture kind of moves together, how the gears kind of interact with each other, and how the final solution actually helps you, benefits your business, and what you have to do and can do actually with the software. So it kind of blew away the smoke a little bit from how convoluted the software portfolio might seem to what actually the intention was and what the benefit is.
It kind of reminds me of Super Mario World. Where you're going along the map and you're conquering all the different worlds, and it's pushing you along and kind of informing you along the way. Did you guys, I mean, I don't know about this, but I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people have had a video game background, and Metaverse is very associated with video games. Did you guys have a video game background when you were creating this, or are you coming from like a web development perspective?
As I mentioned before, we were basically the
Oh,
know-how
you were
within the
doing,
company is kind of a combination out of different ones.
yeah,
Obviously, especially our the artists as well as the engine developers in our regard, they most of the time either are interested or adjacent to game development. It
right.
helps tremendously. So our base technology, or one of the base technologies we use, is a game engine to create these beautiful worlds. I mean, which is also kind of takes a little bit away the mysterium of the metaverse. The base technology is there. We have games that do it for years, kind of bring
Yeah.
people together in engaging environments, making people play that hours a day and kind of have a good time, and kind of without interference, oftentimes, sometimes as well with bugs and stuff. But generally, the base technology is very robust. It works, and it's proven over years. It's not something we magically came up. We just have a skill set to kind of bring different people together. So we have a lot of people from the web development team. We have some game line kind of development parts. We have obviously a huge design and arts team that kind of generates the world. It's a very diverse group.
That's very cool. And how long does an environment like this, I mean, that the first thing that pops into my mind is, how long is it going to take? Like, how far in the future should I be looking when I'm creating something? And obviously, it's going to vary on the amount of, depth it has, and how complicated it is. But generally, what are we looking at as far as time frames?
So how we approach it is, as we said before, we have to bring people to kind of understand how to work
Mm,
this technology and this channel. So what we usually suggest is start small, have a small room, have a small event, present a small product, or have a
mm.
team meeting or something, create an environment around that. Then we have standardized rooms where we just can test the technology if you want that. But most companies obviously want their own. They want to have their own footprint, and they want to show something either internally or externally. So then we start at 2 weeks, basically creating an environment for them with the back and forth and how it should look, depending on the complexity. Obviously, we have projects that go a half a year, where we design complete worlds. It always, as you said before, it depends on the complexity. But technically, having something that kind of has your kind of footprint in it can be done rather quick, depending if how far ahead you are, what your vision is, and what the complexity is. But we can do it really quick, and then you can try it, and from there you build on, which is our recommendation for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of start small and then build your own little universe, metaverse, how you want to say it, call it, build it piece by piece by piece. It's impossible to build the whole thing from scratch.
Yeah, dipping your toe is always nice. It's nice to know that you can actually do that, that you don't have to like just dive into a huge deep pool of who knows what, right? Like you can kind of, I like the idea of, start with a meeting or a small event, or maybe like a customer event or something like that where you can interact. So I think that's a great idea. We started touching on video games a little bit, and things like that. And I wanted to, Erica, maybe shift the conversation to, you talked about how your background and ICUC does, community management. And I worked at a video game development company, and a lot of the community managers were like the biggest part of those virtual worlds. So, how is the community, like, how are people going to be able to address customer service and community management by leveraging these platforms? What do you think is going to like kind of come out of that? And, the future of that kind of communication, customer relations, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we know as a fact about the world and how it's continued to evolve, especially through the COVID-19 pandemic, customer care is 24/7. It does not sleep, it does not stop. In a gaming world or in a, regular email scenario, the expectations of customers is that brands are on. If you are a brand and you are dipping your toe in this space, those customers around you are going to anticipate and expect that you're going to be able to answer and solve for potentially their questions and their problems. And the community managers or the moderators, whoever's in that server, that space, whatever, absolutely need to be prepped and prepared for that. And it's really hard for brands right now to do that. Not only do it, but do it at scale, because by the time you are, global, you may have other languages at play, you're 24/7. Again, you have to look at the expectation of the users. You're, again, knowing your community well, back to that theme, and knowing your customers well. They're anticipating and expecting responsiveness, availability, and being able to help them. So what you can do is plan, again, governance materials, documentation, really arm those moderators and those community managers with how they should handle customer inquiries, concerns. Again, no different. I know, not to simplify it, but it's conventional thinking. Really take that conventional thinking of how you would care for your customers across text or across Instagram DMs, just take it into those spaces. But we just have to know that the audience in a lot of those spaces are really expecting more instantaneous responding than on some of our other channels. In email, you might have forgiveness because you could have an auto reply that says, hey, someone will be back at you in 24 hours. You have that on a lot of the traditional social channels where you can have an auto responder kind of give an expected response time. In a gaming space, that doesn't really exist. There's not sort of a management of expectations other than if you're there and you've shown presence, where are you? Answer my question. So these are considerations that I think depending on the type of metaverse community you're creating, that you need to really take into account. And it is industry dependent, audience dependent. You go into healthcare, which a lot of healthcare organizations, pharma organizations are starting to dip their toes in. Now we're talking about patient communities. They really are. I mean, this is like life or death stuff when we're talking about customer care in some of those spaces or adverse events. And it's really sensitive because those have to be reported. There's certain things that have to be reported to regulators, and there's kind of a whole regulation process around it. So you just have to really, I think we're all really excited about it. Marketers are really excited about it, but not really having that customer care plan in place and recognizing the 24/7 nature of it and funding that and, really preparing yourself for that could be problematic. Because as we know in customer care, you don't respond appropriately or you don't respond in a timely manner, that's your next viral PR issue. So you gotta, I think we gotta really go in with that strategy and go in with that plan and go in with that understanding. Again, really exciting stuff. But if you're not prepared for it, cautionary tale, be careful.
Yeah, don't rush into it, basically. I mean, I like
Yeah.
the idea you had mentioned before, like, having some kind of playbook for how you're going to engage or how you're going to do it. And I think that applies, like you were mentioning, customer care and like patient care. So there's going to be a lot of different ways that people want to engage. One, it could be education, like, can I know more about the product? But two, it could be a problem. Like that's, I think, one of the things people have to realize. It's, yeah, on the education part, it's really exciting and kind of fun and a new way to engage. But when someone has an issue and something goes wrong, I mean, that's going to be
It's
another challenge. Yeah.
that's your next viral. And then they'll take to all the channels, forget it, and that's the next news story. And that's the next thing that, becomes a real issue. And look, you're not to sell, ICUC. There's a lot of, different organizations or game plans that you can have out there. You can outsource, or you can, in your strategy and in your strategic thinking, what's the low hanging fruit? What's the triage plan? Can it be outsourced? Can it not be? Can the easy things be outsourced? You have so many options in that community management space and customer care space. There's just no excuse not to provide a good customer experience if you're activating a new channel. That's just the landscape in the world that we live in and the expectations of customers, and especially forget upcoming Gen Z or alpha generations. I mean, we think that, millennials or Gen X, that we have high expectations on that side of the fence. We're kind of getting annoyed and frustrated at, your 10-minute window, your 30-minute window, kind of getting ready. And these kids, I mean, they're like, where are you? And they're
30 seconds and we're out.
they're canceling you. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. So we have to be really mindful that those audiences and what their expectations are is also going to change the landscape for brands who are entering into these communities.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that kind of really dives into that next question that I had was, what exactly, like, what are going to be the biggest challenges? I mean, I think we talked a lot about the benefits, but what are the biggest kind of red flags or challenges that we need to watch out for? Erica, you mentioned, of course, having the right social voice and addressing your audience in a way that's kind of authentic to the brand. But if on both your side, on the communication side, and as well on the like just development side, when brands are diving into these new worlds, what are the biggest things that they should be kind of just staying aware of and planning for, other than, these potential hazards?
Yep. Pascal, do
Um,
you want
Yeah.
to
I'll
go for
take
it?
that then. Yes. So generally, one of the immediate things is what we also witness in the market, that people plan too big to kind of start the whole thing. We saw that with different clients, or pick the wrong medium. We go to although I take the first one, because picking the wrong medium. For example, let's say we talked about Zuckerberg before, a medium which uses mainly VR to access the metaverse obviously has a very limited use on the market. It's very engaging. It's not, well, in my opinion, it's not technology wise, could be further ahead, but it is very limited to how many people you can reach. It will certainly change in the future. But for example, picking the right medium to access
Mm,
what we call the metaverse, or what you try to represent, is a major thing. We, for example, we started with VR as well, because it can be, if you do it right, the most engaging and impressive way to do it. But it doesn't help if people kind of are locked out of the system. So right now, our system, you can use it in whatever device has a halfway modern browser. You can run it. It's cloud computed, so basically your device can be a brick with a browser on it, and it will work. So that is one of our main approaches, is kind of like make it as accessible as possible,
mm,
so that as many people can join it on both sides. So you provide an environment, just join it from every side, which comes back to the community management and the availability of people. Just have people kind of be able to jump in from wherever, whenever they need to be. And on the other side, if you want to engage with a brand or a company or whatnot, healthcare provider, don't lock them out through the means of technology. And that is a very important thing. We do it. Many other players in the market do it as well, way better than Meta, for example, which is one of the key aspects. And the next one is, I mentioned that before. Don't try to kind of like bring the final solution to the market. Just start small, have a small event, and kind of build from there. Because with every event, you kind of have learnings. You know how to interact with the people that were there. You see what worked, what doesn't work, how to communicate with them. Because your audience is different from the other audience. Even we learn with every event, we learn something new, and kind of build from there. Have the next world a little bit more exciting, a little more aimed or targeted, and then engage from there, and then lift up the whole thing, generate value to every stakeholder involved, and don't try to kind of have the perfect solution ready at point X, which also means start early with the thing, and
mm.
start kind of build the plan along the thing, because technology is evolving. It will be completely different in 5 years and than it is
Yeah.
now. But if you start now, you're prepared for the change and you can adapt, especially if you have a partner that kind of can go the way and it kind of is at the edge of the technology and kind of adapts to it as well and can lead you and guide you.
Yeah. I agree with that's a good points, I think, to remember.
Yeah. And I can just, I think another challenge on top of that, that we all need to be mindful of, is measurement. Right now, I think there's some very simple, measurement things that you can get from some of the different spaces. And if you've had a metaverse community or environment developed for you, it might be a little bit easier because you can put those layers and those analytics into place in that development phase. But some of the mainstream channels or gaming channels, you can't do social listening. There's no API that pulls out the data and the information. The little bit of analytics you might be able to get is very, very clunky. And so
Mhm.
just understanding those audiences for brands to be thoughtful and be mindful about their strategies and their communities has been very hard and very arduous and very manual. Now we look at TikTok, We could have said the same thing about TikTok a year ago. You look at, other communities, LinkedIn didn't have an API forever. I think still doesn't in some regard, depending on what information you're trying to get from it. It's an evolution, but I think we just have to also manage our expectations if you're on the brand side, if you're on the agency side, on what can we get, what is reasonable as a snapshot of our audience to get, but just know some of that information might truly just be manual. And
Yeah.
it's, that is not easy to, I think brands right now, and especially key stakeholders, are pushing their teams for really robust reporting, really robust data and analytics. They want to, really, really put measurement behind every single thing that we're doing. And this is that space that's just not quite there yet. And that is, that is not always easy when we're making convincing stories about why we should and shouldn't get budget. But again, if you're developing something, you have probably a little bit more of a ability to, plan for that and request that and get that. It's just a little bit harder on mainstream channels.
Yeah, you guys are making this conversation really easy for me because it's seamlessly transitioning into the next question. I love it. And that was my next question is that was the question I had at the beginning of this conversation of like all this data, like how do you manage it? How do you manage it? How do you measure it? Pascal, what are the things that you can integrate into your development to identify metrics so you know that something's working?
Yeah, when it comes to how the engagement works, obviously, traditional, as we said before, traditional measurements don't really work. But one of the key measurements basically we take out of the thing is mainly, and that's the most interesting for most of our clients, which is always requested, is engagement time.
Time.
Especially because if you want to compare it to other kind of media, it's kind of money against engagement time. And we, for example, when we kind of do an environment, we usually have an engagement time between 15 and 20 minutes per user. If we just have a presentation, obviously we have product presentation, which is kind of open, non-invitational, where people can join at their own ability, kind of just go in, stay as long as they want, leave whenever they want, don't get bothered along it. Obviously, if we have a company event, it's a different story. People kind of stay as long as they're told they're there. But if they have the freedom to come and do whatever they want and leave whenever they want, we usually have 15 to 20 minutes, which is tremendous compared to the engagement you have on a web page.
Oh, yeah.
15 to 20 minutes, you can put so much information forward. You can interact with the client. You can approach them. You can talk to them. If they enjoy it, they are willing to kind of share that. And that's usually the thing. So without even someone interacting with the individuals that kind of use the environment, 15 to 20 minutes just engaging with your product and how you present it, it is tremendous, which is currently the most requested. Obviously, most of our clients use our, you could do shopping in our environment. Most of our clients slowly have plans to transition that to our solution as well. But oftentimes it is kind of, okay, we have all the measurements in our shop system or our web page or whatever we have, wherever we have it. So we say, okay, no problem. So you click on the product, you want to buy it, you immediately land on the web page with the product, and then you can take the measurements from there. You don't need a new system, you don't need an API, you use an existing system, you use your APIs. Technically speaking, we could measure basically every interaction you have in the environment. It's a game. Games do that all the time for bug fixing, for improvement, for engagement, even more than with, for example, for tech companies that have products. You can only measure so much. We can measure the whole kind of time you're in the environment. Obviously, you have to be very responsible when it comes to that. Another thing I wouldn't trust another company with that we mentioned a couple of times, but we could, and we start with no measurements at all, and then we talk with the client about what do you really want to get out. And as I said before, the key aspect is engagement time, and that is a tremendous advantage over other channels, media, that we kind of captivate people, keep them engaged, and keep them kind of go out. If you're 15 to 20 minutes in there, you don't hate what you see.
Yeah.
So when you know people are in there that long, you know they have a good time.
Yeah, that is amazing. That is actually, just having that captive audience for that period of time. That's such a good measurement. And like you said, I mean, you're again diving into this next question of the future of the metaverse, being able to have that whole experience from engaging with the brand, learning about it, but then going and like clicking and shopping that same environment and exiting like you literally just went into a store without having to leave your home. what do you see? And we're running out of time here. So I just quickly, what do you guys see as like some of the things that maybe we'll see in the next couple of years as the metaverse develops and grows and matures?
Yeah, I think just to jump in, I think we will get a different type of data and the value of the data. Again, I think engagement's huge. Engagement is definitely, very valuable across all channels right now. But I think that the metaverse is going to lend itself to a different type of data and different type of KPIs. So I think that will be really interesting. We got Gen Z and Gen Alpha coming up. They're handing these kids Minecraft at kindergarten,
Yeah.
like straight up handing them laptops. So I think we're going to see more, continuous growth of gaming sites, but I think the gaming sites are going to come together a little bit more. I also think on the healthcare side, we're going to have much more, platforms where, enter here this way. We're going to try to speed it up. We're going to have more surveys on your customer experience that way. But I think healthcare is going to explode into this, and it's on the cusp, but it's going to be really fascinating to see how that evolves.
Yeah, I can only second that. Healthcare and education, we currently do 2 research projects on that with our team and external partners, and that are the things that really healthcare tremendously. The fact that you can join as an avatar and talk about what bothers you kind of helps tremendous with a lot of things. There are so many applications on the healthcare sector. I'm completely with you. This will explode. This will go, and it shows the good and the benefit of the technology we have. And it will get a huge push, as well as education. Kind of having interactive, engaging education examples for a global audience will be tremendous. It is at very low cost comparably. You don't have to have a building. People that attended need an internet connection, and schools need teachers. That was it, technically. And then you need someone who kind of puts it into practice. But apart from that, you can address so many people with that. Education will be a huge thing on a global scale. These 2 things are probably 2 of the ones most excited about, because they will drive a lot of the engagement. And as we said before, the following generations that grow up with gaming, for them this will be completely natural. It will be the go-to channel to kind of address them, and kind of having everything in a digital way that you can traverse as an avatar, for example, and kind of naturally interact. For them, there will be. Will come naturally. So it will be there. It will be the most natural growth, that you transfer services that you currently have in the physical world, and you have to kind of visit someone or go to a tour. You will never go to a T-Mobile store again. Sorry.
Yeah, thank God.
I was going to say, is that bad?
You don't have to go to the DMV anymore.
Yeah, my daughter was asking me the other day. She's like, so what kind of phone did you have when you were a kid? I'm like, there was no cell phones. And she was like, her mind exploded. How did you talk on the phone? Well, there's this thing called a landline, and that's what we had. It was like, she just lost her mind. She just thought it took her a minute for her to wrap her mind around it. So it is, yes, they are definitely digital and mobile first, and it's a whole new playing ball game for them. So I think it's really interesting. I think this was such a good primer and conversation around how to get into the metaverse. I really appreciate you guys and your time here. We'll be, sending some collateral to everyone to kind of give them a little starting point. You guys, Erica, ICUC created the marketing in the metaverse. I guess it's a white paper. Yes.
A guide.
Yeah, a guide. So it's a great primer. Yeah, it's a great primer to just kind of understanding the metaverse, what you could be doing, how you should be listening, how you should be communicating. So we'll send that to anyone who is listening and watching this. Thank you guys so much. And this has been such a great conversation.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
All right. Have a great day, guys. And we'll see you guys in the next webinar.